Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show. We're live on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Thank you very much to you for joining us. Alan Ruff and Alison McConnell are here with me. Hugh McDonald usually does a Tuesday, Ali, but I don't think he can get off the island of Arran.
Or get on it.
That's another point. Crazy times. But great to have Ali here with us to talk football. There's lots to talk about, of course. We will focus at the top of the programme on the sad passing and shock passing, really, of the Rangers kitman Jamie Bell. So many legends are paying tribute to him today. They just can't believe what has happened. We'll be reading out some statements from the chairman and Giovanni van Bronckhorst as well. And then we'll talk about other football stuff. Jota, is he going to stay at Celtic? John McGlynn's leaving Wraith Rovers. Champions League group stage for this season's Scottish Premiership champions confirmed, and there could only be 4 games for the team that finish second to try and make it to the group stages as well. Tony Mowbray, add him to your list of people who potentially could become the Hibs manager. David Marshall, could he be on his way back to Scotland? We'll throw that in the mix. Chris Mueller's on his way out of Hibs, just didn't work out for him. And we'll look at Rangers against Leipzig coming up on Thursday. The place will be bouncing. It would be a fitting tribute to Jimmy Bell if Rangers could produce something special on the night to make it to the UEFA Cup final. I know Jimmy sampled that when Rangers made it all the way there in 2008. So that's what we've got on offer for you. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell as well. You'll get all the notifications. Thank you to so many of you for the thousands and thousands who are hitting the subscribe button and watching our content. And there's a brilliant one-to-one interview up at the moment with Kerry Pollock, our reporter, and your striker Brian Graham. It's great wee chat. Kerry's gone through the old quickfire round with him and asked him various questions about who's the worst dressed, the trendiest, best person who's got all the music at hand, talks about the manager, and then there's a great one-to-one on our YouTube site as well, Ruffy.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great season, a very experienced for us. I think he missed Jack Rudden a wee bit, but he's still scoring the goals. It was great that he got nominated in the team of the year. And he really loves the women's football. He really gets a big kick out of seeing the girls developing. And while him and Doc have went there, they've just come on leaps and bounds, semi-final at the weekend. So, yeah, I think he's taking his coaching badges as well. So I'm sure he'll have a lot to say on the interview. Yeah,
well worth it. Kerry Pollock with Brian Graham and the one-to-one. I didn't want to do all the one-to-ones myself, Ali. We need a bit of help here, to get people involved. Give us your thoughts on all things football. We'd love to hear from you and what your thoughts are ahead of a big week. First and foremost, thank you to lots of people who are Sean Maxwell, RIP Jimmy Bell. Jimmy will be sadly missed. Rest in peace. Condolences to the family, says Ian Miller. And I think a lot of people are passing on their condolences to Jimmy's family. And let's start with that, because Douglas Park, the Rangers chairman, has released this statement with regards to Jimmy's shock death. As a club, we are absolutely devastated to learn of the loss of our colleague and, more importantly, our dear friend Jimmy Bell. Jimmy dedicated his life to Rangers, having worked under managers from Graham Souness through to Giovanni. He experienced some of the greatest days in our 150-year history. Of course, he was here during some of the lowest points and showed selfless dedication regardless of the challenge ahead of him. Jimmy's work ethic was second to none. No job was too big or too small for him, and he thrived on working for his boyhood club. He was excited for Thursday night's game at Ibrox, particularly having experienced a European semi-final before under Walter Smith. Rangers and Scottish football as a whole have lost a legend and a friend today. He was a family man, a devoted father, grandfather and husband. Jimmy will be sorely missed, and I send our heartfelt condolences to the entire Bell family at this difficult time on behalf of Rangers Football Club. Well, before we read out some of the other messages, Ruffy, what a shock. Only 57 years of age.
Yeah, it's incredible, but in the past couple of years we've had a lot of these stories about people in football, and this is another sad one. He was a big part of the club. If you ask any player There's always a Jimmy Bell at every club, you know, behind the scenes, a kit man, but he's more than a kit man. They do everything, the laundry, you know, they're like a bit of banter with the players, and they're very close to the players, most of these guys at the club, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of players out there, you know, who remember a lot of fond memories with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that sticks in my mind, as soon as I speak to any of the former players on Jimmy, the one thing that always springs to mind, especially from someone like myself, Ali, he's got to have the best football collection of strips of anybody, and he'll be up there with the best in the UK when you think, because he loved collecting the strips from the teams that had visited Ibrox.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that'll be a source of intrigue to some people within Ibrox, and maybe some comfort to his family too. Just a part of him and a part of his enjoyment of football in his professional life. But like you, I think the esteem with which he was held in came through loud and clear when you spoke to former players, and I think his name was mentioned often. I think you know the esteem with which he was held in.
Yeah, absolutely. And over and above that, Ruffy, you know, when you think of all the times that he spent at Ibrox, good days and bad, as the chairman mentioned there, you need certain people that make players and lots of people around the ground feel as if it's a home if you see a well-kent face.
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, these guys have their own wee room, and as I said, it doesn't matter what club you're at, but players like getting into that wee room. They like talking to somebody like him, you know, and maybe talk about the good times, bad times, what they're doing at the club, how they're playing, and it's always a good place for banter, and the dressing room banter in football is second to none, and I'm sure he'd have been part of everything that was going on at the club.
Yeah, absolutely. And Giovanni van Bronckhorst has had this to say about Jimmy Bell. I am devastated to learn of the sad passing of my friend and colleague Jimmy Bell. I had a special relationship. I loved being around him, both as a player and just subsequently as manager. He was a hard-working and dedicated colleague here at Rangers, who epitomised everything that was great about the club and what it stands for. And I think he'll be sorely missed by everyone at Rangers. And Giovanni goes on to say, I said my thoughts and prayers to the Bell family at this difficult time. Elsewhere, you know, there are photographs of so many, just people who would have visited Ibrox, former players, who just would have seen Jimmy's face and wanted a photograph with him any time they returned to their former club. And one of them was Ronald de Boer, who says, with great sadness, the news came to me that Jimmy Bell passed away. You will be missed, Jimmy, the best kit man in the world, R.I.P. And Maurice Ross, I think, caught on the hop with the whole thing. Jimmy Bell, undoubtedly the most prepared and thorough kit man to have walked the earth. A misunderstood man, had the heart the size of a house. Behind the hard exterior was a warm and gentle soul. Loved his job and the Rangers. Heartbreaking news. Love you, Jimmy. That's from Maurice Ross. And Jonathan Johansson, devastating news. So sad. Jimmy made me feel so welcome. Helped understand this great club and supported me when times were tough. Always a legend. Lots of love to his family. And the last one I'm reading out is basically because I think this may well have been his last action as, you know, not only the kit man, but the man who announced the substitutes. It's from Ahmed Jallo, who says, you've been serving the team for over 30 years. Thank you for everything. May Allah accept you on his right. Rest in peace, Jimmy, which is a lovely touch because he was the last man on, I think, 3 minutes before, Ali, the end of the game against Celtic.
Yeah, I think it feels quite shocking though, you know, like, you're at work, you're in your own environs on Sunday, and life is as normal, and I think it's just quite a sobering reminder that how quickly things can change, and I think that might be quite painful for the people who were closest to him and those at the club who were close to him, that 1 minute you're there and the next you're not. And I think you have to appreciate the difficult circumstances and the difficult days that might lie ahead for people who were close to him. Yeah,
my apologies, Ruffy. He's 69. I don't know where I got 57 for, but he's 69 years of age, which is young these days. Well, I'm saying that, you're 70. It is still young.
Yeah, it was, but you know, although he was the kit man, I'm sure a lot of the Rangers supporters and a lot of the Rangers players, he was always in a photograph. You know, he was always in the dugout or at the side of the dugout, or a manager would be doing something and he'd be there, you know. And he just did everything that Rangers was. He was just a part of the whole system there, and you know, and it will be in the future days. There'll be a lot of people have some fantastic memories that they had with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And from everyone here on the football family at PLZ Soccer, I think we pass on our condolences and prayers to the Bell family at this very, very sad time. A shock to all the footballing community of his passing today. Jimmy Bell passed today at the age of 69. Okay. Thanks very much to all the messages. Lots of people posting great messages about Jimmy on this sad day. We move on to some of the other stuff that's going about. One of them is UEFA statement on banning Russian clubs. This has certainly opened up various avenues of opportunity now for Scotland. Russia will have no affiliated clubs participating in UEFA club competitions in the 2022-23 season. Consequently, the respective access lists of the men's and women's club competitions have been rebalanced. Furthermore, Russia will be assigned a number of coefficient points equivalent to the lowest number they have earned in any of the last 5 seasons. The UEFA Executive Committee has also declared the bid submitted by the Football Union of Russia to host Euro 2028 or the UEFA Euro 2032 as not eligible. So, that means 2 things for Scotland. It's a chance for the home nations to actually host Euro 2028. There's a bid from Turkey, and it's down to the UK and Turkey now to try and convince UEFA that they are the best that's on offer to host Euro 2028.
It gives them a better chance. I think it puts them in position to go and challenge for it and look to showcase the event here. And I think with Russia being taken out of it, it maybe facilitates it.
Yeah, we've got some wonderful stadiums, as they have down in England and Ireland and Wales. You know, so I think it's the way things are going now. You know, it looks as if it's a shared competition, and we've certainly not let anybody down. Anytime we've been given a big game here at Hampden or whatever, the crowds have turned out, they've behaved themselves. Most of the games have been fantastic. So yeah, I think we're a great candidate, and it's good that we can possibly get something like that.
Yeah, and over and above that, suddenly we're in a situation where it changes for Scottish clubs, potentially with European qualification, because now the Scottish Premiership champions of this season will definitely go into the group stage of the Champions League, Ali. And as you can see, here's how it changes the whole face of things, because we've got Champions League group stage for our Premiership champions. Then the runners-up will have a Champions League third round qualifier, which means effectively 4 games to get to the group stages. Scottish Cup winners, third place, is a Europa League playoff round. 4th place, Conference League third round qualifier. 5th place, Conference League second round qualifier. So it's opened up so much for us.
Well, I think the confirmation of that Champions League place will be welcomed hugely. I think Celtic look as though they're in pole position to claim it. I think there was just a few doubts lingering. Had Villarreal gone on to win the Champions League and wouldn't have qualified, but I think it confirms what we've suspected all season, that there's an automatic entry now into the group stage. But it also raises the prospect of potentially having 2 Scottish teams competing in the Champions League, because I think Rangers would go down to a third round qualifier and a playoff, or the runners up will go to a third round qualifier and a playoff position, and I think it would be remarkable again to have 2 teams from Scotland competing in the most prestigious European tournament that's available.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about it, Ruffy, is if we can get more teams into these group stages, suddenly, you know, you can have a considerable amount of money. It changes people's budget considerably in the way they move forward. I mean, Hearts could have something like £3 million from Conference League. When you get into that, you know, it's 40 million obviously for Champions League, Europa League, if you can get the full group stages as well. It's a considerable amount of money. Yeah,
that is. You know, I mean, I'm sure Hearts will be rubbing their hands, particularly where they were 5 and 6 years ago financially, but now it gives the manager, you know, I know he's saying he's not going to splash the cash, but certainly when you get that kind of success, you want to go up another level, and I think that's what Hearts will do. They'll try and attract a better player to the club, but the pressure is also on all the other clubs who are in the conference. You know, we need them when they get in there to do well. We just don't want them turning up. We would like to see one or two of them, you know, making a better fist of it, you know, and get more coefficient points.
Yeah, that's my bugbear.
Yeah, I think if you have 5 teams going into the European environment, then what happens is you're judged on how all 5 teams compete, the way the coefficient is calculated, that points are distributed and divided between 5 teams. So you can't be reliant on 1 or 2 teams going in and banking points. You really need a contribution to come across the board if you want to enhance and just solidify where Scotland are now in the coefficient table, because it's taken a long time to get back there, given where they were and the climb that's taken place over the last decade, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It would be fantastic. That's the frustrating thing for me, Robbie, is out with Celtic and Rangers. You know, I think maybe Aberdeen for one foray into the group stages, but other than that, diddly squat. You know, they've been knocked out at qualifiers.
Well, it's not going to be them or Hibs, who are used to rely on not doing well, so they're not in it this time. And we look at the teams who could be in it, and I don't hold out a lot of hope in some of the teams that are getting into Europe at this particular stage to do particularly well, but I hope they do. I hope they prove me wrong, whoever gets there. But as Alison said, we really need somebody to do well.
Yeah, that's the thing about it, you know. You don't want anybody to start splashing cash and put themselves into financial difficulties, but is there a wee balance of, you know, speculate to accumulate?
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. I would agree with you. I think it would be remiss to significantly alter your budget based on European football, and I would even include Celtic in that, because it's not necessarily transfer fees that eat up the money, but salaries. And if you give someone a contract that's spread across 2 or 3 seasons, you're not going to be able to guarantee that there's the same budget available in subsequent seasons. So I think you do have to be sensible about it. I think you have to be cautious about it. But I think what this does, I think the early confirmation helps to shape budgets, because there's no ambiguity about where you might be or whether or not you might miss out on a pot and have to sell someone to compensate for it. I think it gives you an idea of the financial footing that you're on going into the transfer window, and you make a decision accordingly, and you decide what your ceiling is, what's a sensible ceiling, and can you afford to maybe go to parameters that would have been out with your control maybe just a few months ago.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, Ruffy. In the last few years, Rangers really have stepped up to the plate with their contribution in the points, with the great performances under Steven Gerrard and now Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Yeah,
they've moved on year. I think this year in particular, they saw as the big year, you know, because if they'd won the league, still could win the league obviously, that there was 40 million at the pot. I really do think they've thrown the kitchen sink at it this year, not in financial stages of buying people, but the wages, the people they've attracted. So they'll have to readdress it if they don't get that 40 million, because I think they were really banking and winning the league and moving to another level. But the success they've had in the Europa will help that, you know. But I think once you get group stages of Champions League, you attract a better player. If somebody approaches you to come to a team who's playing group stages of Champions League, I think you get a wee bit a better player. You obviously have to pay for them, right enough, but if you're saying, would you like to come to a team that's playing in group stages, I'd have a bit of that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think it's a great attraction, and it has been, if anything, that one solitary shining light for Celtic and Rangers when they're trying to get players that are maybe above, you know, they're not so much their pay grade, but some players look at Scottish football with disdain, and you know, at times you can understand why when the riches of the Premier League down south are on offer. But I think if you suddenly say, look, we're playing Champions League football and they're unlikely to get it anywhere else, it becomes an attraction. And you look at Rangers, Alison, if they can beat Leipzig, if they can win the Europa League, they're automatically into the Champions League as well. So it's a huge cherry on offer.
I think it's a massive carrot, I really do. For players, I think it gives you an opportunity to play on a stage that not every club can offer. I think it gives you something unique, even if it's a short-term move where you think, you know, I go up and you have an opportunity to present yourself in that kind of prestigious environment, and to test yourself and just to showcase what you have. I think it is quite a unique selling point. I wouldn't underestimate at all. I think it can be difficult for Celtic and Rangers to attract a certain calibre of player to come north of the border. I think you'd be kidding yourself on if you said that it's easy for clubs, regardless of the fantastic stadia that they play in and the fact they fill it every week. I still think Scottish football can be a hard sell for clubs, but I think the Champions League is definitely an added incentive. I think it's huge, and I think the fact it's guaranteed, so you're not banking on getting through qualifiers in August that are notoriously difficult before securing the signature of someone. You can present it now as a fait accompli.
I do think though, Ruffy, that Rangers, because of what they've done over the past few seasons, the stature now is of that situation where, whereas before, and all the troubles that have gone before, now you're in a situation where people are noticing and saying, well, wait a minute, they were good under Steven Gerrard, look at how far they've got here. They may well have to play qualifiers if they were the second place team, but I think the stature of them and what they've achieved is certainly a real attraction as well.
Yeah, I think any player that they identify to come up will have to look at what they've done in Europe and the great run that they've had, and Alison's touched on it. It doesn't matter who they go for. I would suspect that they're not going to be playing in front of 52,000 every second week, whatever club they're coming from. So yeah, I think it is a massive attraction, and I would go back to that one. I think Jota's a perfect example. There's a guy who wasn't getting a game with Benfica. He comes to Celtic. He's now a hero in front of 50,000 people. He's now maybe got a chance of playing in the group stages of the Champions League. So he's obviously going to say to himself, am I going to get better anywhere else? Who's in for me that's going to give me that? So I think if it is a deal, I think it'd be easier for it to get him to sign now than what it would have been.
Yeah, I think on that Jota deal, I think the real selling attraction for him, apart from anything else, will be Champions League, as Ruffy mentioned. But getting him there and giving him a taste of what's on offer, I think, has been a huge pull for Celtic. When you get to a situation where suddenly you're on the verge of winning the league, you're playing in that stadium, you see those European nights, all of that has thrown into the mix. They've still to get him over the line, but it looks good at the moment.
Yeah, I think ultimately what it comes down to is a choice between that. On the one hand, you have 60,000 people at every home game, an opportunity of Champions League football, of first team football, a significant part in a team where you're loved by players and by fans, or is it about money? And I think that's what the choice comes down to, because I think you'd be kidding yourself on if you didn't say he would attract a better salary south of the border. I think even the world that we're in, I think possibly even championship clubs could outbid Celtic on that front. So I think it becomes at some stage a choice, a personal choice for the player. I think what Celtic does do is offer a development side. I think if you are doing well at Celtic and competing in the Champions League too, it gives you a profile where you can build and where you can move on, and that's been a very successful business model for Celtic over the last decade or so.
And forgive me, you didn't think he was going to?
I didn't think he was. I would still be a bit sceptical of it. I think I do. The journalist in me would wonder if today's news is maybe an attempt just by agents to smoke out interest in other clubs. If other clubs have expressed an interest, it's maybe an opportunity to bring them to the fore. The other hand, I think Celtic saying, look, we would intimate that we would like to take up this offer and fulfil the clause that was agreed last summer, might also suggest that they have had an indication from Jota that he wishes to stay. And I think that would be excellent news for Celtic. I think he's been a pivotal signing. He's been a key part of Ange Postecoglou's side this season. But crucially too, I think either way, Celtic would need to know early on in the window. I don't think you can afford to hum and haw and wait for confirmation. I think if he's not going to the club, then you would want to be working out where you go instead.
Yeah, we'll talk about others at Celtic shortly. I'm going to read out a few messages. I always like to read out a few messages that are sent to us, Ruffy, if only for the fact too, there's the odd noise up here and there, and then there's the odd one who maybe doesn't grasp the entire context of the conversation and only takes little sound bites. So it's always good to read. Look at Ali, she's worried in case it's you. Don't worry, it's usually me. But I'm going to read out. Anne Grogan says, Peter, Rangers are the only team that's done anything in Scotland's coefficient. And I mean, I think I pointed that out there. I think Rangers over the last 2 or 3 seasons have been absolutely brilliant and really have driven that coefficient. I don't think there's any argument about it. I mean, Celtic's, some of the performances and the teams they were beaten by have been dire. And also over and above that, there's a great line here from Robert Robertson, who says, "You're having a laugh, Peter. Celtic and Rangers for the coefficient. Celtic have been a disgrace in Europe," says Robert. And this is a great one here from Tony Angelino, who clearly, I think, is looking for us all to wear dinner suits on this programme, Ruffy. I think we wear, I mean, you wear your PLZ top. I should put mine on from time to time, but and Ali should put hers on if she hasn't sold it. But
you sign it.
But Tony said, "Peter, I like that you have a tracksuit, but with a hat at the back of it and all that, it's for radio. You must have get changed in a power cut." I mean, it's just, I mean, honestly,
fashion show now.
It's honestly, you've got it. You know what's happened since we brought Richard Foster on? Everybody's got to spend thousands on their clobber, haven't they? It's a simple minds. It's a simple minds hoodie. What more can you ask for?
I love them to see Richard Foster's dinner suit the other night.
Yes.
See what kind of comments we've got with that.
Well, I think we can get a photograph.
Oh, we have to get posted. It's got to be posted. I've never seen a dinner suit like that in my life.
And my mate, and I kid you not, who was at the PFA Awards, who we play tennis with, Jonathan, he was absolutely 3 sheets to the wind, and he said to me, "I love your suit." And I thought, Jonathan, you've lost the plot. And he says, "Who makes it?" And I think he had a look and he thought, maybe just a wee bit too steep for me. But we must get a photograph of it, Robbie, because I think the first words that came into our mind was ridiculous. Anyway, thanks to Tony for giving me absolute pelters there about my gear. I don't actually mind these things, it's quite good. But lots of you have been passing on your messages about the passing of Jamie Bell, so thank you for that. And of course, as soon as we talk about coefficient points, everybody just teams in and starts arguing with each other. Sometimes when you lose the thread on YouTube, Ruffy, there's a moment when you actually just dip in and then go out and let everybody just fight with each other.
To be fair, I think actually if you look at the coefficient over the last decade, over the last 5 or 6 years, I think you'll find it's a fairly even split between Celtic and Rangers. And I know the perception...
Not the last 2 or 3 years.
The perception is different because obviously Rangers have been so consistent in that environment over the last 2 to 3 seasons, and Celtic faltered.
Yeah.
But I think actually if you look over the course of the 5 or 6 years where it's divided, I think you'll find that the points are actually quite eachy-peachy.
Yeah, absolutely. When there was other managers and you know, you were reaching group stages, but I think it has to be said over the last 2 or 3 years, when you're looking for those points to rack up and move Scotland into 9th position, it's all kind of a fallen in you know, the Scottish Premiership's favour, because I think of what Rangers have been doing.
Yeah, but the coefficient is calculated over a 5-year period. I think when you look at it, it's they've both contributed. They've both contributed to raising it and pushing them up. And I think the challenge now is sustaining it. I think you want, when you get a taste of it again, when you get back into the group stages, you see how difficult and how fraught it can be to qualify. I think the challenge is just sustaining the level of the coefficient, and that's when you need everyone this summer. If you've got 5 teams competing, that you want to bank some points.
Yeah, Stephen says 2019 we topped Europa League group, Peter. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, if you want to all steam in and start battering each other on you know, who's contributed what, I think the point we're making is over the last 2 or 3 seasons, it's not a crime to say Rangers have actually, with the way they've played and extended themselves into European football, they've contributed a lot of the points. If you want to start kicking the lumps out of each other elsewhere on this feed, be my guest about it. Point scoring.
You tend to find people in social media are quite civil in discourse normally.
Yes, absolutely. They know when to just jump in on each other. But apart from anything else, Niall comes out with a great line. Peter, any thoughts on Roy Keane, you know, distancing himself from the Hibs job? Niall, I don't think he even needed to distance himself from the Hibs job. I don't think there's a catch chance in hell he was ever going to get the Hibs job.
Yeah, I don't think so. He doesn't tick the boxes as far as I'm concerned. A fantastic name, fantastic player, fantastic pundit, you know, but as a manager, hasn't went down well a lot of places that he's went to. I don't know the reasons for that, but certainly the criteria at Hibs, I don't think he ticks any of the boxes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's fairly blunt on it. I have my doubts about. I think they need an experienced manager to come in now and steady the ship. Mm-hmm. My biggest problem with Hibs, Ali, is I wonder what manager's going to come in and work under the parameters that they've set out, which is this committee who will decide with Ron Gordon's son, who's doing a great job, by the way. He comes in. They all sit round and say, right, here are the players. We only have to look. Chris Mueller came in from MLS. He's going back the way now because he's going back to America because it didn't work out for him.
I think it is. I think there will be considerations. I think the more experienced a manager, I think possibly the more consideration there will be for the working relationship that's behind the scenes. And I think the culture that Hibs are getting a reputation for in terms of hiring and firing managers with ease. 4 months in a job and a manager's fired. An up-and-coming manager who went in without a lot of experience doesn't get time. So I think it will be a consideration. I still think it's an attractive proposition to some managers. I think if you're out of work and the Hibs job is there, I think it is an enticing prospect, and I think you would fancy your chances of going and putting pressure on Hearts for that third spot. But I do think that the environment is potentially trickier.
If I was the Hibs chief executive or chairman or owner of the club, and I was looking and thinking to myself, okay, who is ideally placed to take this club forward? For me, I would be looking, I'd sit down with everybody at the boardroom and say, it's Malky Mackay. Go and get Malky Mackay. Because he could go in there. He is a manager who is way above normally what Ross County could attract as a manager. And I think his experience, no harm to Roy McGregor actually thought to himself, well, I'm going to go and take Malky on and I'll take the flack of people who still will not let him move on from the texts. And he's taken that and he's put his faith in him and he's given him money, and Malky slowly but surely worked his magic. But I think if they could turn around at the Hibs and say to themselves, okay, let's take a step back here, change the way we do things. Malky, you're the manager, here's your budget, get on with it.
I think Malky would take that, because it's a stepping stone to try and get back to where he was. And I think he's done incredibly well up at Ross County. I think even in the interviews, win or lose, he comes over very well, very honest, in the reflection of his players. And I think he's done tremendous. He's put himself in a place for a job like Hibs. It just depends on, if that's the criteria he has to work under.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there comes a point where you have to have a conversation about what is there. I think the baggage is never going to go away, and I think it's a conversation that will come with every move. I think you need to get to a stage where you say, well, you maybe don't forgive and forget. You have to discuss it. You have to appreciate that it's there, but at the same time, I think he's moved on. He's had a couple of jobs. He was at the SFA. He's been at Ross County. I think you have to give him the opportunity to work. I think. It's there.
Hibs are a bigger club than Ross County. I mean, that's just a plain fact, and I think they are a club that, for such a long time, Ruffy, I think they should actually really, I'd love to see them with a bit of ambition, because the fan base is there. They'll get right behind them. If they only had a team to relish on the park, and a manager who could actually just steer it himself and say, this is the plan, this is the way forward, here's how I want the youth to play, here's what I want to happen in the whole structure of the pyramid here at Easter Road, and this is the team I'm going to build. Yes, I'll have youth, but I'm going to use, as I did at Ross County, all those little nuggets of loans that I can with people that I know down south. Then you would see a different Hibs.
Yeah, I think things fell to bits a wee bit when Leanne Dempster left. I think Leanne was in control of most of everything that was going on about the club, the departments. Tam has more inside information than me, but what I'm hearing is there's lack of communication between all aspects of the club, all departments, whether it's academy, whether it's the cleaning women, or whether it's ever. There's nobody pulling all these people together, and there's no directive, there's there's decisions happening at the club that people are just throwing their hands up and going, well, I didn't know that. Or if a player appears, they go, I didn't know he was coming to training, or I don't know how long I've got him. And these things, if that's the things that are happening behind the scenes, it's not a club in progress. So it needs somebody to get in there and pull everything together.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you think, if you're a Hibs fan watching the show, who would you like to see as manager? You can give us your thoughts on that. We've kind of been ducking, diving out of various topics, but with Thursday in mind, we did touch on it yesterday, Ali, but last night 10 men of Borussia Mönchengladbach defeated Leipzig, and I think Mr. Tedesco, the manager of Leipzig, is far from happy with what's going on, and he's promising changes, but I think it's just a case of trying to throw a rocket in there to try and get them all to realise the enormity of Thursday's game. Yeah,
I wonder too how much they had maybe just taken their eye off the ball, knowing the magnitude of Thursday night's game. I think Rangers have a huge chance. I think the tie is very finely balanced. I would say again what we talked about yesterday. I think the first 15-20 minutes is huge, because I think if Leipzig go and get a second goal, it makes it very difficult, because Rangers then have to come out and really go for it, which then leads to the issue that you can just leave yourself wide open and can be picked off. But I think the atmosphere around Ibrox, what it's going to be like. It'll be, the energy and the sense of anticipation. And I think if Rangers give the crowd something to feed off, then you sustain that noise and that energy. And the only way it really quietens is if Leipzig go and score. But I think they have a tremendous chance. I think if you look at how they approached the Dortmund game and how they've played against previous teams, particularly at Ibrox, there's been a bravery, a resilience about them as a team. I think they'll have grown in confidence from the run that they've been on this season and last season. And I think they might feel you go out with a sensible game plan, but equally that you've not got much to lose here. You've got an opportunity to get to a Europa League final, and if it stays at 1-0, the longer it stays at 1-0, I think the more you would fancy Rangers.
Ruffy, I fancy Rangers to win it.
I don't know. I really do fancy them to get through it. I hope they do get through it. My biggest worry is, as I've said, this team have scored away from home every game they played. 3 at Real Sociedad, 2 at Atlanta, and they've scored at Bayern, and they've scored everywhere they went away from home, and Manchester as well. So in that assumption, you've got to think they're going to score 1 goal, and then it's up to Rangers. But things can happen for you on the night. Look at the last game; they got a goal in 2 minutes. If you can get things like that, that just gives everybody a lift. It gives the players, the fans, and then you can go on. I'm just flabbergasted they played a game last night, because the German teams usually help their teams.
Yeah.
They usually give them a weekend off or something. I just don't understand why they're playing on a Monday night when they've got a game on Thursday.
And travelling.
Yeah. Well, if it's to their detriment and we see a Scottish club in the European final, roll on. We are about to see. What do you think Rangers' game plan will be? Do you think it's going to be just try and go all-out attack on this one, or will they just be cautious, keep it tight, and then hopefully pick their moment to try and get that goal that levels the tie to 1-1 and then take it from there? It's all about opinion. We'd love to hear yours, and don't forget you can hit the subscribe button and join us here on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel, and hit the bell and you'll get all the notifications of our unique content. There's some great interviews there, one-to-ones with Martin O'Neill. Gordon Strachan is on there, Jamie Murphy. Also we've got one from Brian Graham with our reporter Kerry Pollock, has just gone up today, that I know you'll enjoy. James McPake has been talking to us in a one-to-one as well, and there's lots of great dream teams there and more to follow as well. So we'd love to know what you think of it all. There's lots of content, and Monday to Friday at 4 o'clock we're live, and we read out some of your messages as well, providing of course they have a modicum of decency to them. Anyway, on that point, you love me doing that, but I have to say, sometimes
I know there's a bad one when he starts typing.
Yeah, I do type because I think it's only right and proper that we do remind people to show a bit of dignity, decency, and of course there might not be sporting integrity in Scottish football, but there is. We're trying our best on this channel. You might not like what we've got to say at times, but at least we love Scottish football, and we try and give as balanced a view as possible on everything to do with our game, and give you an opinion. At least you get an opinion here. And with that in mind, let's look at some of the other angles in Scottish football. John McGlynn leaving Wraith. Now, some people will look at it, Ruffy, and say he's been linked to the Falkirk job. We spoke to Kenny Miller. I think he's got that. I think Kenny Miller's got that wee feeling this could be the time to get into management. But I think John McGlynn, maybe for me, and I'm only offering this in my opinion, might have looked at it and said, I've had enough, Maybe even the board said, listen, it's time to cut the cord here because of what's going on. I think John would have been scunnered with the whole thing with David Goodwillie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs who suggested Goodwillie or who signed it off or whatever, but at the end of the day...
Well, the manager makes the call, Ruffy.
Yeah, I know, but when it all kicked off, I think John was left in a position where maybe he had to come out and make a statement.
Yeah.
And I think that affected him badly. He obviously thought it as a footballing appointment, which you maybe could get your head round.
Yeah.
You could see why he did it, but I think there are massive things happening at Wraith Rovers. I think they've said to themselves, look, let's leave it to the end of the season and then we'll have a change. I think you'll find most of the board will resign. I think the CEO will resign, and I think there'll be big changes.
Think so?
Yeah, I think there'll be big changes. I think there's a lot of things.
You think the chief executive of Wraith Rovers will resign?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I think there'll be big changes. I really do. Behind the scenes, I think, although it's sort of calmed down a wee bit, I think the supporters up there have still not let it go. All the sponsors have still got something to say about it. So I would keep my eye on Wraith Rovers because I think there's going to be massive changes.
Yeah, I think if they are starting to clear out things, it's to try and maybe convince people that they're starting afresh and saying, look, we've made mistakes.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I think there was absolutely no question that the David Goodwillie signing was going to lead to what you got. I think it was inevitable. I think it was ill-advised, and I think it should have been the first conversation that when you propose a move that you know what's going to come with it. I thought it left the club in a very poor light, painted the club in a very poor light, and I think their own fans have lost a significant amount of trust in them. And I think it is only through big changes that you find that again.
Just to say something about John McGlynn and him being the manager, and saying he makes the decisions. If he's a footballing guy, and somebody's going to say, we're going to get Goodwillie, do you think we should go with that? I think his immediate reaction, well, he's been playing with Clyde for 4 years, nobody's bothered. Why should they bother if he comes here?
Yeah,
that's just for a football aspect, but there is a bigger scenario.
I don't want to go back.
No, we don't want to go back over.
It's been out there. It's been digested, disgusted. There's all various groups that wanted to offer their tuppence worth with it. But I think Double D makes a very good point, which I think will resonate with you and me and Ali, because we've known him down through the years. I've known him for a long time because when I was a reporter at Radio 4th in Edinburgh, Hearts, Hibs, Dunfermline, Wraith, that was my bag. And John was in there at Tynecastle, Jim Jeffries, Billy Brown, all these guys. He's a great man. He's a decent man, and I think Double D says John McGlynn's a decent manager and he'd be good for Falkirk. I think he's a good coach. A lot of people really do rate him as a coach, and I like him.
Yeah, I think he comes with a good reputation as a solid coach. I think he'll be disappointed at where Wraith finished this season. You do wonder about the effect all the Goodwillie did have on them at the back end of January, because I think at one point they looked to be vying for that title. So I think he'll be disappointed in a coaching sense at where they've ended up in the Championship, but I wouldn't suspect it would undermine his coaching credentials. Yeah,
okay. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up and where everybody else ends up as well. And just looking at some other stories that are doing the rounds, give us your thoughts. Who you think is going to be the next Hibs manager? That's still ongoing. The news that with Russia's exclusion from European competition, the champions of Scotland will go straight in at the group stage. And then there'll be one qualifier and a playoff place for the second place team in the Scottish Premiership. Give us your thoughts on that. Some other breaking news: Leigh Griffiths is one of 10 players to leave Falkirk. That's come through in the last half an hour. No, I mean, no great surprise, is it, Ali?
I don't think his record was good, but I think it's sad. I think what age is Leigh Griffiths? 31, maybe. I think he should still have something to offer. I think he was one of the most natural strikers in the Scottish game. I think an instinctive forward, and I think he should be in a better position than what he is currently.
Yeah, Ruffy, Leigh Griffiths can score goals if he was someone who showed a professional attitude. Mm-hmm. But we're now talking about somebody, I think he is about 31, who's leaving Falkirk. Some other club will take a risk on him and hope they can maybe get him fit, maybe change his attitude. But look at the weekend there, Sunday at the PFA Awards. Joe Cardwell's 35 and he scored 16 goals this season.
Yeah, but it's the old scenario, and what's in a footballer's head, and they're not all the same. A lot of people thrive to want to keep playing football and look after themselves, and that's why you get a Joe Cardwell. You get others like Leigh, and I don't know what's going on in Leigh's head, but we just keep remembering the player that he was. A fantastic player, 40 goals a season in the Premier League, and again, there are lots and lots of players like Leigh Griffiths who go off the rails for whatever reason, but they're the only ones that can fix it. And if they don't want to fix it, then they just fall full of grace, and they'll regret it. They'll really regret it at the end of their career. Money isn't everything, obviously you're looking after your family and everything like that, but you want to be remembered in football for your good times. And obviously in the last 2 or 3 years, there hasn't been many, which is, I think, very unfortunate for him.
Yeah, I think it's a situation. I've been very vocal on it. A lack of professionalism. You can see him sometimes. He just looks unfit, and he's not got that sharpness to get away from people. He certainly hasn't got the sharpness to produce the goals that Falkirk were looking for. And now you just wonder where he is going to end up and who's going to take that last chance saloon on him.
I think it's so frustrating for people who have worked with him, for coaches and managers who can see the ability. And I think he's a very likeable boy. I think when you speak to him, he's articulate, he's a clever boy. He's been candid at times. Post-lockdown, he admitted that he wasn't doing the work that he should have been doing. He admitted he'd returned overweight. There was an honesty on his part that he'd fallen short, and I think if you can accept that, then you think, well, the next step is to rectify it. But you never ever saw just getting to where he needed to be in a professional context.
Yeah.
And I think it's very sad because he's a talented boy, and his ability suggests he could and should still be playing top level football.
Well, the other thing, Ruffy, I was going to say to you is maybe, and this is only from looking out from a distance on it, and I have watched and I know people who were Leigh Griffiths' agent down through the years, a thoroughly decent boy, wouldn't do you a bad turn, but then he would just go out and do something crazy, and then the agents would be like, what are you doing? You just couldn't believe what he'd done. He's got that kind of a element of just going off the tracks, at various times. But I think maybe it needs someone to sit down and continue that kind of, one-to-one. I'm loath to use the word psychiatric help, but someone who can sit down with him and try and motivate him again, to get the best out of him. I
think it has to come from within. Yeah. I think you have to want it. I think without that, I think all the help in the world makes it very difficult for anyone to reach. I think there has to be an internal decision to get to a certain level.
I would have thought him being about a football club with the riches that are there just now for the players just now, and to take away for that, the players now are athletes. You can't go to a football team and not be as fit as most of the guys in the dressing room.
Yeah.
It's just a stick out. I mean, I've seen it. I mean, you've seen the players that they do the other night. They are athletes. Every one of them is looking after themselves 100%. You won't get away with getting into a dressing room and not being
the sports science now as well. There's nowhere to hide. There's an analysis of everything, of urine samples, of blood samples, on a constant basis, making sure you're hydrated, making sure you're nutritionally balanced.
Can I give him the benefit of the doubt that, I mean, I watched the Gaza programme. I'm not blaming the media here, by the way, but some players can't handle the media attention. They get it to a certain extent, and then it goes against them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's because of their fault, that they don't know how to handle it. And
I think it would be very different. I think if you're a young boy at 20, 25, coming through, and you find yourself the focal point of a lot of media, I think it is difficult. I think it can be quite intrusive at times. I think,
but what about the people you surround yourself with, Ali?
Yeah.
And that's where I think it becomes important, about the scaffolding that you have in your real life, not the artificiality of fame and what it might attract, but the genuine people that are in your life that give you the foundations and the grounding to cope with that. And I think if maybe that's not in place,
I'm not sure. I know you said
difficult.
you think he's a clever boy. I don't agree with you on that. I think when you're able to take a step back and see the madness of what's going on about you, and I don't see him as being a clever boy, because when you make a mistake once but twice and three times and do stupid things consistently, and it's not just isolated incidents with him, it's a number of them down through the years that have managers just shaking their heads and wondering what's going on. He's had agents like that as well. Now, I am always of the opinion some people deserve a second and a third chance. Some people deserve the chance to get their lives back on track. I am always like that. I interviewed Gaza when he was down at Middlesbrough, as well as when he was up at Rangers. You want people, because we should look for the good in people to try and redeem themselves. So if someone can do it for Leigh Griffiths, carry on, great. I applaud you. And as Ali, I think there's a stronger element of what you said. You need to want it yourself as well.
Definitely. I think I really noticed it last summer at the European Championships. That first game, Scotland's first game, and he was at Hampden to watch the game. And at that point, you're thinking, he's 30. You're not 40. You're not 30. You're not sitting there at the end of your career. You're sitting there at a stage in your career where you should still really be integral to what is going on, and he had the capability and the talent, and you're thinking, I don't think you could be at Hampden as Leigh Griffiths and not think about those goals, not think about those free kicks, and the trajectory of his career from them was all down the way.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, we talk about facts. His goal scoring for Scotland was not great. It's 2 free kicks. It's 2 free kicks that elevated him to a point where people thought he was a saviour at a time where we were hoping we were going in the right direction, but overall, if he'd started to bang in 15, 20 goals, then you'd start to say to yourself, well, we need him at an international level. But I think the 2 free kicks just took him on to another level, and over the last 2 or 3 years, especially at Celtic, I think for the wages he was paid, his contribution was woeful. And this whole drop down, I hope he can somehow plateau out and then go up the other way, but I have my doubts. I also, with the sad passing of Jimmy Bell today, lots of people have been passing on some really lovely messages about Jimmy and his time at Rangers. I'd also like to pass on our best wishes to Ray McKinnon, who's had a heart attack at just 51. Ray's been on the show, Ruffy, a great lad, and I think a good manager.
Yeah, he certainly went to a lot of clubs. Some clubs obviously didn't work for him, but that's the case with managers. But very well respected in the game as a coach, and it just shows you, how well he was thought of, because if any clubs were looking for a manager and he was available, they went with him. So, and a terrific footballer, let's not forget about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We might as well, Ruffy, say hello to one of our journalists who works with us, Cheryl. Her grand's watching. And clearly, with you being the housewife's favourite, it would be nice to wave to her gran just to say hi.
And her name,
I just say, let's just
Cheryl's gran.
Yeah, there you are.
I hope you're keeping well. Cheryl's gran.
Yeah, some people kill for this. This is magic, isn't it? Honestly, he's like Jesse 8 stars on Sunday. He just sits there in his rocking chair. Anyway, that's me showing my age. What do you make of Mark Lawwell as the new head of recruitment at Celtic?
It's an interesting one. I think so long as he's successful, as if he brings and identify players who strengthen the team and strengthen the club, I think it will become an unremarkable appointment. He seems to have an existing relationship with Ange Postecoglou, which I think is very important. I think the relationship between the manager and someone in that role can be vital. I think they both have to be on the same page. The flip side, I think, is that if there are any poor signings or signings that don't work well, then I think you have to expect accusations of nepotism coming in. And I think, as you saw this time a year ago, when it's not going well on the park, that there's a magnifying glass that goes into every aspect of the running of the club.
Yeah, okay, let's look at tonight. There's a Champions League game on. I wish I was there, because I was there last week, Ruffy. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's Villarreal 0, Liverpool 2. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. Villarreal 0, Liverpool 2. It's the second leg. And this time around, Jurgen Klopp says despite that scoreline, it's not going to make the second leg any easier for them.
So it'd be a tough one, but it's fine, really completely fine, because it's Champions League semi-final should be tough, and that's absolutely okay. We never expected it to be easy. This will not be easy, but we played a good game at home, and we will better play a good game there as well.
Well, I think Liverpool are more than capable of scoring there, Ruffy. They've got so much talent.
Yeah, they certainly have, and they rested a few at the weekend there. With this in mind, I never saw anything in the first leg that would make me think that they're capable enough of turning over a two goal deficit. So, and I think it's onward for Liverpool. And if you're going to watch a European Cup final, that's the kind of teams you want in it, an attacking team, not a team that's going to sit in and spoil it and ruin the night. They're going to go for it no matter who they're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think? Scoreline?
I think maybe 2-1 Liverpool.
Yeah.
2-1 Liverpool.
Yep, okay, I'll go with that as well. Just Man City, are they going to do it? They're 4-3 ahead?
Yes.
Yes, okay, that's good enough. Just before we go, Ruffy, there are some great playoffs coming up. Partick Thistle against Inverness Cali Thistle. Yeah,
tonight. I'm actually in charge of hospitality tonight. If you're in there for a pie and a pint, I'll be there.
Yeah. Are you playing tennis tonight?
No, not.
Thanks looking after the journalists.
7:05, tennis game. Can't make it, I'm sorry, I'll be at football. And it'll be good. The games against Inverness have been good all season. We've sort of cancelled each other out a couple of times, so I think it's important we take something on Friday night.
Yeah, okay. What do you think, Ali? Thistle or Inverness?
I've seen both recently.
Don't be scared.
Well, I don't really want to say what I think. I think Inverness have looked the stronger of the two teams over the last couple of weeks, but I think the nature of the playoff is different. I think it's different from a league game. It's got a cup feeling to it just because of the obvious progression. I don't know, I think Firhill can work in your advantage. The pitch is desperate for both sides, but I think it's a decent support. But,
there'll be a big crowd tonight.
It'll be a good crowd, but I think probably you need a positive result tonight to have any chance.
Come on, cut to the chase.
You've been lost.
Inverness.
Yeah, Inverness over the two legs for me as well, absolutely. Montrose against Airdrie, Ruffy. I think Airdrie can get through over the two legs.
Yeah, what a run they're on. Was it one and lost in 22 or something like that? Oh, Airdrie, flying.
Yeah. Okay, Annan against Forfar. I'm going to go with Annan.
I'm Annan as well.
Yeah.
Annan.
Yeah, and Edinburgh City, Dumbarton. I'm going to go with Edinburgh City.
I don't know. I think I'll go with Dumbarton.
Yeah, I'm going with Dumbarton as well.
Okay, then there's a little bit of a difference there. Some people might be accusing me of bias on that one. Anyway, thank you very much to lots of people who posted their messages. We really do appreciate the fact that you post messages about your club and try and keep it as decent as possible, because we're a football family and we love our football. Once again, our thoughts with everybody who is mourning the loss of Jimmy Bell, the Rangers kitman. Football goes on tonight. Enjoy it tonight if you are going out to a match or you're just watching it on the telly. Join us tomorrow if you can, because on the show will be Richard Foster. Maybe talking the suit.
Wear the suit.
I'll ask him to wear the suit, and he'll be talking about what happens tonight. And we'll also have Tam McManus here and Ruffy as well. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button from everyone here on PLZ Soccer and the Football Show. See you tomorrow.